going to look at adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing radicals. We did it in class, but I just want to put it on video for those of you that like to go back and watch. So to add or subtract radicals, you must have the exact same thing under the radical symbol. Okay, so it's just like combining like terms, where you have to have the exact same variable, and here you have to have the exact same thing under the radical. So in this example, these are the only things that have the same thing under the radical. So we're going to combine those, and we're going to leave the 2 root 6 alone. So we're going to get 2 times the square root of 6, 4, and we're going to add the coefficients. 4 minus 8, or 4 plus a negative 8, is negative 4. So you get negative 4 root 3. We can't combine it any further, so that is your final answer. Okay. So let's look at a couple more examples. Okay. It even works with variables. In this case, with the 2 root a plus the 8 root ab minus 10 root a. We're only going to combine the things with just the a. So we're not going to do anything with the 8 times the square root of ab. But 2 minus 10 is negative 8. So we combine those, and we get negative 8 root a. So our final answer is 8 times the square root of ab minus 8 root a. Okay. Now in these two examples, it looks like we might not be able to combine them, but what we're going to do is we're going to simplify under the radicals. Okay. So 27 is 9 times the square root of 3, or not 3 times 3 times 3. So this becomes 2 times the square root of 3 times 3 times 3, and we're going to pull out the 3's and bring it to the front. So it becomes 6 times the square root of 3. So now we can see that we can combine minus 2 root 3 and 6 root 3, and that's going to give us 4 root 3, and we can't do anything with the 2 root 2. So there's my final answer. Okay. In this next example, I've got 2 root 2's already simplified, but the square root of 18 breaks down to 9 times 2, or 3 times 3 times 2. And then again, 8 breaks down to 2 times 2 times 2. So we're going to pull our pairs to the front and multiply. So that second expression becomes minus 9 root 2, and the third expression, when we pull out our 2's and multiply, becomes minus 6 root 2. Okay, and now I can combine everything. 2 and negative 9 is negative 7, and then minus 6 is negative 13. So I'm going to get negative 13 root 2. So remember, when you are adding or subtracting, you're just going to combine things that have the exact same number under the radical sign, and you're going to do that just by adding or subtracting the coefficients in front. Okay. To multiply radicals, we're going to multiply the outside to the outside and the inside to the inside, and then we're going to simplify the radical. So if I look at my first example, my outsides are negative 5 and negative 3 are my coefficients, so it's negative 15. And underneath, I can write it as one big radical as 15 times 15. I wouldn't even multiply that out, because right now I can see that I've got a pair, and I'm going to pull that out. So I'm going to get negative 15 times 15, which is negative 225. All right, so we're going to look at a couple more examples of multiplying. So here, there's nothing to multiply the negative 4 by, so it stays out in front. It's the coefficient. 6 breaks down to 2 times 3, and then we bring this 3 down as well. And I'm going to pull out my pairs, bring it to the front, and multiply, so I get negative 12 times the square root of 2. And that is simplified. let's look at these other examples. So 15, I'm going to write all of this under one radical. 15 breaks down to 3 times 5. 8 breaks down to 2 times 2 times 2. Then I've got my p squared, and I have my p cubed, but I'm going to write my p cubed as p squared times p to the first. So if you remember from the exponent stuff, we just have to add the radicals when we're or the exponents when we're multiplying. So that's why I can rewrite that. So now I've got a pair of 2's that are going to come out in front, and I have a pair of p squareds that are going to come out in front. So I'm going to get 2p squared in the front, and then I have 3 times 5 times 2 left inside, so that's 30, and then the p. So 2p squared times the square root of 30p. Okay. Last example, I'm going to multiply the 3 times the 2. That's going to give me 6. 25 is 5 times 5. 20 is 4 times 5, or 5 times 2 times 2. And then I have an x and an x squared. So coming outside, I have a pair of 5's and I have a pair of 2's. So they're going to come out and multiply to the 6. And I've got this x squared that's going to come out and become 1. And then underneath, I've got the 5 and the x. So this is going to be 60x root 5x. All right, so now let's talk about dividing. So to divide radicals, we're going to simplify or reduce the outside to the outside, or the coefficients can be reduced, and anything under the square root can be reduced. This is the same as writing it as under one square root, but we don't necessarily have to do that. Okay, so we're going to simplify any radicals, and then if you remember from the last video, we can't have square roots in the denominator, so we're going to do something that's called rationalizing the denominator. Right. In this first example, I can reduce 5 over 20, so it becomes 4 times the square root of 1 over the square root of 4. The square root of 1 is 1, and the square root of 4 is 2. So if I simplify 4 over 2, it becomes 2. Here, square root of 20 over the square root of 16, I can reduce by 4, so I get the square root of 5 divided by the square root of 4. And then that becomes the square root of 5 over 2, because the square root of 4 is 2. Now, when I go to reduce this time in these examples, 15 over 10, because we can only reduce what's inside to inside or underneath the radicals, so becomes the square root of 3 over 5 times the square root of 2. Now here's where I can't have that square root of 2 in the denominator, so that means that I have to get rid of it. And I'm going to do that by multiplying the square root of 2 over the square root of 2. So square root of 2 over square root of 2 is just 1, so that doesn't change that at all. Work on the warm-up. Okay, and what's going to happen is I'm going to multiply. How did I go to adding and subtracting? Square root of 3 times the square root of 2 is 6. Please don't tell me this is going wacky now. Square root of 6 over 5 times the square root of 4. The square root of 4 is 2, so I'm going to get the square root of 6 over 5 times 2, which is 10. So the square root of 6 over 10. Now here's the deal. Whenever you multiply a square root by a square root, you get the number underneath the square root. So that's what we're going to do to rationalize. Here, our negative 5 over 10 reduces to negative 1/2. And then we have the square root of 5 on the bottom. So we're going to rationalize by multiplying by the square root of 5 over the square root of 5. So I'm going to get negative root 5 on the top. Square root of 5 times the square root of 5 is 5. So 2 times 5, which again is 10. So I get negative root 5 over 10. Okay, so in today's video and in the class the last couple days, we've been talking about doing operations with radicals, adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. Have an awesome night, day, whatever. Hey, thanks.